So when you read, you're obviously using a line on the ball.
Yeah.
When you read a putt, how do you read it to then determine where you aim that ball?
I normally see the curve.
Okay. So how do you determine where the ball is then lined up to?
I normally look at the score, like try to see the highest point of the curve.
Okay.
Where the point is there, relation of the hole.
Okay. So line up to that point, please. I think that ball jumped.
I think that it's too much of a break.
Well, that ball did jump.
Oh, okay.
You got put in over a few bumps and bubbles. Okay, so you're going to hang around, that's fine. Yeah, no problem. I was a bit more sensitive to the young lad hanging around because there's a lot of stuff he probably didn't need to listen to.
This is off-season for her.
We have a more experienced professional who can assimilate all the relevant information. Right, so let's look at the straight putt first of all. And, well, we didn't really ask you any questions at the time, but what are your thoughts with your putting at the moment? Are there any particular issues that you feel you struggle with? Is there a bias at times to start the ball left or right that you know of?
It's more mainly with the distance more.
Speed.
Speed, yeah.
Okay, speed control. Right. So any observations from what we saw, the straight, the right to left, left to right, just using our eyes? Not much rotation. Okay, so I like it when we look at players and we try and categorize things like. I always try and look at my eyes and think, okay, what's the path doing? What's the shape of that stroke look like? What's the rotation? Is it low or high? Is it low to high? Is it high to low? Where does the ball look like it starts relative to the aim? So you're building a picture of that face, path and strike, aren't you? Start line. Building a picture. And then if I have that picture in my mind, when I then go look at the sound, I'm looking at that to see if it verifies what I see. So we'll look at the straight putt. You're saying like a low rotation stroke.
What was your feeling? What was your feeling about it?
When we got onto the left or right putt, I thought to myself, shit, I've not looked at this enough with my eyes. So, but to me, it looked like there was a glancing blow left and held off. And if I looked at the arm motion to me gave me an indication of low rotation, particularly on the forward swing. But if I'm honest, I should have paid a little bit more attention, but I'm trying to juggle 10 things here. And I'm a bit nervous.
You wanted us to look?
Yes.
As well. Okay.
Okay. So, straight putt, we had slight aiming bias of under a degree, 0.9 closed, and then 0.3 opening. So the impact was fairly good, 0.6. Okay, so 0.6 degrees of error. We talked about starting the ball within half a degree. So that's close to that. Now obviously there's slight left aim bias and a little bit of opening. The path, and this is what we could see, the path was left, so there's a glancing blow. Relative to the path, it's not. The path so far left, if the club face stayed square to that path, it would be particularly closed. It's held off slightly to the path. So we can see red for impact, which is club face open to path. Rotation relative to path, 3.1 degrees. So acceleration, what do we see in terms of acceleration? We got positive acceleration or deceleration. Got a lot of acceleration. Okay. So here, impact, we can see the club is accelerating quite a big deal. Now here, the speed consistency, the delivery of the speed is actually very good.
That's due to a lot of practice.
Yeah, okay. But I'd like to see if this profile changed. So one of the things we've done is go right to left, straight left to right. Let's go short putts, medium putts, long putts, and then see if the speed was consistent in its delivery. Timing. So if we look at the ratio, 2.86, sometimes up to 3-1. So the downswing is, the backswing, sorry, I should say, is almost 3 times the length of the downswing time. If we looked at the timing of the backswing, it's in that grey area. So it's you'd say it's average to slightly slow, but not massively slow. So why the need to swing down so quickly? Well, if you have a short stroke and the timing isn't quick, then you're going to need to accelerate in the downswing, aren't you, and apply that input, create that impulse to get the speed into the ball. So you've got a marginally slow backswing, but certainly a short backswing. Therefore, over acceleration. So I'd like to see how that player would adjust over different lengths of putts. Because the player doesn't create a lot of load in the backswing. And the putts where you're really going to emphasize the amount of load that you have will be on longer putts, uphill putts, slower greens. So if I had a really sort of slow uphill putt, my instinct would be that's possibly where that player could get caught out. Maybe transitioning to slower greens, transitioning to uphill putts, controlling the speed. I don't know if that's the case. Yeah. So quick greens, we're trying to take load out. It's an easy thing, easier thing. Don't have to accelerate as much on the downswing. So if you look at a distance control, and adaptability is the acceleration pattern functional to be adaptable to different scenarios, different putt types, different green conditions. I would question whether it is. And then if that was my student, I'd work on the timing and rhythm of that stroke. Slightly brisker and longer, and trying to get that profile closer to like a 2-to-1 ratio and try and minimize the amount of acceleration that you have there. So let's look at the left to right and right to left putts. So we go right to left putt. Now, fortunate for me in terms of that calibration, both players said that they picked some sort of linear reference. We had a line on the ball and a point, and the other player picked a point hole high. Now sometimes the player might not pick those kind of references, so it's easy for me to calibrate the sand to that. Now in that scenario where the player doesn't, then what I will do is I'll find a putt where I know the break, and I'll pick it like a 10-foot break or 15-foot break. We look at the data. We picked our aim point. The first one, we aimed 3 degrees to the right of that. And then we opened the face slightly, and it missed high. Second one, we aimed a bit better. Club face came in slightly open. It missed high. And then the third one, we aimed it 2 degrees right. The club face came in slightly open, and it missed high. And at this point now, you're thinking, I've misread it. I'm going to change my read. I don't think you misread it. Okay, I think you aimed it right of your line and then pushed it. So I think if we'd have had, on average there, nearly 3 degrees of error in the combination of your aim and start line. And if we take 3 degrees of error off that break, I don't think you'd be far away. So the path now, 2 degrees open on average, the path is 2.5, so it's an average of 4.5 left of the face, so fairly similar pattern again, cutting across it. Rotation, a little bit more holding off, post-impact.
Go back to that picture before. That's what we saw the path. Well, this has been attended for 15 years. We've been working on it. Every now and then we get straight.
Yeah.
And this is what comes back.
Yeah.
Now we're off season starting today.
Yeah.
Next season, so. But that's what happens.
Yeah. Okay. Let's look at the timing. So the ratio still high-ish, 2.67. The downswing time gets a little bit slower, but still similar profile. So we go left to right putt. So we aim it left 3 degrees on average. The first one was nearly 5 degrees, and then you 2.5, 3, 2. There's a slight element of closing, 0.7. But if you look at the average aim relative to the average closing, the aim produces far more error than the closing does. So where those balls finish were primarily determined by how far left that you aim them. So there's an over-aiming bias, okay? An over-aiming, there's a slight left aim bias, if anything, I should say. And then a slight over-aiming bias. So there's probably a little bit more bias to aim left on the left to righter when you've got a left aim bias and an over-aiming bias. On the right to lefter, if you've got a left aim bias, that could be disguised within any over-aim. So I actually think that the reads weren't too far out, were they? My instinct was, wouldn't have been too bad. You just didn't start it on the line. So I would look at aiming, where you aim your ball. So on that left to right putt, your ball wasn't aimed at that point. It was aimed higher. And then also where the line of your putter relative to the line of the ball didn't match. Now that's where, maybe the visual cues, be more precise about the visual cues in terms of how you line up the ball, how you match the putter to the line of the ball, and then even how you work your eyes down that line, with a linear versus non-linear. So when you addressed the left to right or the right to left putt, you got the line of the ball. As you look down, are you looking down like in a straight line to that target point, or are you looking down towards the hole? Trying to see the curve. Okay. So does she see the curve high? Remember the slide that we put up where the balls came in high? So I would actually find a putt where you've got a fairly planar surface, like a 2 to 3% slope, find that straight line to the hole, roll balls down the string into the hole, and then plot. Use chalk to plot, and then get the student to step in and then see if that looks high or low. Because if it looks really, really high, she's likely got to train her eyes to see the ball coming off lower from that initial start line. And that will then push her instinct lower to help manage the over-aim. So I think, relative to this player's issues, that if you improve the player's tempo and timing, she could improve her distance control. And then if she just aimed it better on breaking putts, there's evidence from the evidence presented here, you'd putt better. And you're not changing the mechanics of your stroke there to do that. So you had a little look at to think, oh God, you know, because you're being critical, but all right, you've passed 5 degrees left, but doesn't really, as a figure, doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything. So, relative to your performance, they'd be the first things that I would look at. Aim on breaking putts, rhythm and timing. Then the last thing you'd look at is maybe tidying where that left aim bias comes from slightly, or the rotation. But you can see on the left to right putts, there's actually some release. The right to left putts, okay, there's some opening. But is that driven by that over-aim instinct? So are the perceptual cues forcing the player up there? So I think that's where I would look at targeting strategy with that player, making sure when they look down they see the relevant cues that are going to help them, because I see that directing players' intuition. And same again as well, get my email off Hank, and if there's any way that I can help, then I'll be more than happy to.
Very good.
Okay, so
if you do by the first week of January, then we will work together.
Oh, yeah.
First time forever, you know.
Okay, well, I am
Be there.
I am going to be there from the 5th.
So we will do something together.
Yeah, happy to help. Does anyone have any questions about that?
Question about was a straight putt was aim was correct, but side heel putt was too much to the up. Could it be a reason that the speed of the wheel was not clear? I'll let him say that again. So the question was, the aim was pretty good on a straight putt, but then on the breaking putts it was way more up the hill. So was that a case of the calibration of the speed of the green? Well, if that was the case, then possibly when she hit the putt, the speed of the putt would be equally as out. And I don't see that as being the case. I think that's her intuition. My instinct, my intuition says that's her over-aiming bias. I'm not saying that there could be occasions where speed then starts to influence that, but with how much that she's out, I didn't see that as a factor of speed. Because if that was so, then she'd hit the putt at her intended speed, which would be out as well. I see that as an over-aiming bias, and then it's finding ways in that to manage that. So I'd be looking at those visual cues, and even starting at lining up the ball. You lined up the ball high both times. So do you need to line up the ball better, maybe using an intermediate point rather than a... Or, over time, do you generally underread putts? And then as a consequence, I've developed that over-aiming bias to function. And maybe we got you with 2 putts where you flute the read. That could be. But you only look at that, and you can only really determine that as you work more towards understanding what's happened. You would find that out, and that's what it would take time. That's where I would start with the player, improve the rhythm and timing, the distance control. I'd test them on different putts, see where it broke down. I'd then start to look at the reading and the aiming before I even touch that stroke. Okay. Right, well, from my perspective, that sort of wraps up what I got to say. Are there any questions specific to that player in that case study? Or any questions from today at all? No. Okay. Well, that just leaves me just to say thank you very much for your
attendance today. I really appreciate you coming out and making an effort. I hope you've enjoyed the day. I hope more so that you've taken some elements from today that you could apply to your own coaching. It does give me great pleasure to come to these things because I'm a passionate coach myself, and learning has always been a central part of what I do. So you're making the effort, coming out, supporting the day. You know, I do appreciate that. It's my first visit to Finland as well, so thank you for entertaining me. And I wish you all the best with your coaching. And as I said earlier, if anyone's got any questions, you want to follow up anything, then get my email off Hank or Petri, and I'll be happy to communicate with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you.